The esteemed Mullah Nasr-ad-Din characterizes by the words, "All they can do is wrangle with pigs about the quality of oranges." This kind of people among us, who have been turned into, so to say, moths, destroying the good prepared and left for us by our ancestors and by time, have not the slightest notion, and have probably never even heard of the screamingly obvious fact that during the preparatory age there is acquired in the brain functioning of every creature, and of man also, a particular and definite property, the automatic actualization and manifestation of which the ancient Corcolans call the law of association, and that the process of the mentation of every creature, especially man, flows exclusively in accordance with this law. In view of the fact that I have happened here accidentally to touch upon a question which has lately become one of my, so to speak, hobbies, namely the process of human mentation, I consider it possible, without waiting for the corresponding place predetermined by me for the elucidation of this question, to state already now in this first chapter at least something concerning that axiom which has accidentally become known to me, that on earth in the past it has been usual in every century that every man in whom there arises the boldness to attain the right to be considered by others and to consider himself a conscious thinker should be informed while still in the early years of his responsible existence that man has in general two kinds of mentation. One kind, mentation by thought, in which words, always possessing a relative sense, are employed, and the other kind, which is proper to all animals as well as to man, which I would call mentation by form. The second kind of mentation, that is, mentation by form, by which, strictly speaking, the exact sense of all writing must be also perceived, and after conscious confrontation with information already possessed be assimilated, is formed in people in dependence upon the conditions of geographical locality, climate, time, and in general upon the whole environment in which the arising of the given man has proceeded, and in which his existence has flowed up to manhood. Accordingly, in the brains of people of different races and conditions, dwelling in different geographical localities, there are formed about one and the same thing, or even idea, a number of quite independent forms, which during functioning, that is to say, association, evoke in their being some sensation or other which subjectively conditions a definite picturing, and which picturing is expressed by this, that, or the other word that serves only for its outer subjective expression. That is why each word for the same thing or idea almost always acquires for people of different geographical locality and race a very definite and entirely different, so to say, inner content. In other words, if, in the entirety of any man who has arisen and been formed in any locality from the results of the specific local influences and impressions, a certain form has been composed, and this form evokes in him by association the sensation of a definite inner content, and consequently of a definite picturing or notion for the expression of which he employs one or another word which has eventually become habitual, and, as I have said, subjective to him. Then the hearer of that word, in whose being, owing to different conditions of his arising and growth, there has been formed concerning the given word a form of a different inner content, will always perceive and of course infallibly understand that same word in quite another sense. This fact, by the way, can with attentive and impartial observation be very clearly established when one is present at an exchange of opinions between persons belonging to different races, or who arose and were formed in different geographical localities. And so, cheerful and swaggering candidate for a buyer of my wiseacrings, having warned you that I am going to write not as professional writers usually write, but quite otherwise, I advise you, before embarking on the reading of my further expositions, to reflect seriously and only then to undertake it. If not, I am afraid for your hearing and other perceptive and also digestive organs, which may be already so thoroughly automatized to the literary language of the intelligentsia existing in the present period of time on earth, that the reading of these writings of mine might affect you very, very cacophonously, and from this you might lose your you-know-what, your appetite for your favorite dish, and for your psychic specificness, which particularly titillates your inside and which proceeds in you on seeing your neighbor, the brunette. For such a possibility ensuing from my language, or rather, strictly speaking, from the form of my mentation, I am, thanks to oft-repeated past experiences, already quite as convinced with my whole being as a thoroughbred donkey is convinced of the right and justice of his obstinacy. Now that I've warned you of what is most important, I am already tranquil about everything further. Even if any misunderstandings should arise on account of my writings, you alone will be entirely to blame, and my conscience will be as clear as, for instance, the ex-Kaiser Wilhelm's. In all probability you are now thinking that I am, of course, a young man with an auspicious exterior, and as some express it, a suspicious interior, and that as a novice in writing, I am evidently intentionally being eccentric in the hopes of becoming famous and thereby rich. If you indeed think so, then you are very, very mistaken. First of all, I am not young. I have already lived so much that I have been in my life, as it is said, not only through the mill, but through all the grindstones. And secondly, I am in general not writing so as to make a career for myself, or so as to plant myself, as is said, firm-footedly, thanks to this profession, which I must add, in my opinion, provides many openings to become a candidate direct for hell, assuming, of course, that such people can in general, by their being, perfect themselves even to that extent, for the reason that, knowing nothing whatsoever themselves, they write all kinds of claptrap, and thereby automatically acquiring authority, they become almost one of the chief factors, the totality of which steadily continues year by year, still further to diminish the, without this, already extremely diminished psyche of people. And as regards my personal career, then, thanks to all forces high and low, and, if you like, even right and left, I have actualized it long ago, and have already long been standing on firm feet, and even maybe on very good feet. And I, moreover, am certain that their strength is sufficient for many more years, in spite of all my past, present, and future enemies. Yes, I think you might as well be told also about an idea that has only just arisen in my madcap brain, and namely, specially to request the printer, to whom I shall give my first book, to print this first chapter of my writings in such a way that anybody may read it before cutting the pages of the book itself. Whereupon, on learning that it is not written in the usual manner, that is to say, for helping to produce in one's mentation very smoothly and easily exciting images and lulling reveries, he may, if he wishes,